After doing quite a ton of videos about the L322 Range Rover on this channel over the last few months, I've had quite a few questions about this Range Rover, other Range Rovers, newer Land Rovers, older Land Rovers, pretty much everything. So I thought I would compile a list of 10 questions I commonly get asked about this Range Rover and other Range Rovers and Land Rovers, and do a video answering them. We'll talk about everything from cabin noise to what it's like owning the car to reliability, and honestly, that makes me incredibly happy because I love these cars, I love getting to answer questions about them, and I love getting to share Land Rovers with other people. But for now, let's jump into the video talking about 10 questions, or answering 10 questions about the Range Rover. Number one, and the most frequently talked about topic and question is, are they reliable? And let's just be honest, they are and they aren't. They're like any other luxury car in the fact that there are going to be things that over time go wrong. And it just happens. But that happens, like I said, with any luxury car. There are sensors monitoring everything about every little part of the car during every single second you're driving. And over time, those sensors can go bad. So, are they reliable? Honestly, yeah, they kind of are when you consider everything that it actually is. All of the machines working together, all of the computers working together to do a ton of different things all at one time. I promise any other computer that had just as many components would be just as reliable. Now, are there Range Rovers that have reports of having issues right after being purchased, even directly in from the factory? Certainly, but let's not forget, broaden your search a little bit and you can find that information about any manufacturer on any car, anywhere, anytime. I mean, flukes happen. It's just part of the process. Most of the time though, we forget to mention that a lot of these things are taken care of pretty quickly. On top of all the tech, there's also the differentials and all of the heavy duty components to make sure that this Range Rover is a true and pure Range Rover. A lot of that stuff can go wrong over time if it's neglected. Another thing I think a lot of people forget about is that these cars depreciate quickly, and that means that over time they get passed on to owners who don't necessarily have the preparations in place to take care of it when something goes wrong, which is fine. It's their money, they can do what they want with the car, but that means a lot of times they put it up again for sale, and those problems are passed on to the next owner as soon as any sign of a problem comes up. Truth is, if you take care of it, do the timing chain, service the fluids, flush the fluids when necessary, take care of all of the regular maintenance that comes up and everything that is scheduled to be taken care of, you're gonna be just fine. Are things gonna come up occasionally because a sensor goes bad or one of the air springs needs to be replaced? Yes, but that's, like I said, to be expected. It is just part of ownership. Another very commonly asked question is, how many miles does mine have? And now, this is something that I can't really over talk about, which I'm pretty good at. So, it has 123,000 miles on it. I bought it with 97,000 miles on it. It's been an absolute champ and tank ever since. To be fair, I had way more problems with my 2003 Honda Accord during that mile range than I have this. So, I'm very happy with it. As of lately, no, not much. I haven't really been taking it on anything. For the most part, it has been in the garage, except for some errands and whatnot around town. And there's no real reason for that. We've just been driving the BMW a lot, so the Range Rover's been getting some naps. Don't get me wrong, when I first bought it, I would take it off-road all the time, but lately, I've just not had the time. It's not that the car can't do it, it's just that I don't feel like it. Honestly, in the past few months, I've not taken it off-road really any. Last time I did was probably honestly close to a year ago. With that said though, I would love to get this Range Rover together with a few other Land Rovers, organize a meetup and just meet up, talk Land Rovers, talk about cars, just meet up and have fun with the Range Rovers and the Land Rovers, go on a quick highway trip, go on a quick off-road trip. So what I'm getting at here is that I'm open to taking it off-road. Off-roading by yourself can be a little boring sometimes. So if you have any Land Rover model, let me know and we can organize a meetup, get the cars together, and talk Land Rover. Honestly, I've never driven anything quite like it, and until I drove it for the first time, I really had never experienced something so commanding. If anything, I would imagine it's kind of what a tank is like to drive, except for the fact that you're not driving a tank, you're just driving something the size of it with air springs that makes the ride incredibly comfortable. gives it a floaty feeling, but at the same time can handle corners pretty well for a 6,000 pound SUV with luxury features inundated throughout the interior and exterior. So honestly, what it's like to drive is perfect. It really is. It's kind of scary. Kind of. In the sense of the L322, one of the things I don't like is in the later models, and early models too, but it's less acceptable in the later models, is the complete lack of Bluetooth audio and the lack of a power lift tailgate. Now, this really isn't something that bothers me on a day-to-day basis. I would love to have a power tailgate, and I would love to have Bluetooth audio and a 2011 luxury car that cost as much as it did, but really it doesn't matter that much. There is another thing I don't like, and that is the stereotype around Range Rover drivers. And a lot of people, for some reason, think that they are pompous assholes, and that's not the case. I was a pompous asshole well before I bought the Range Rover. All jokes aside, I bought the car not to show off. I bought it because I love it, and I feel like a lot of people buy Land Rovers because they actually love the brand and get a lot less credit for that than they actually deserve. Now, are there those people who buy one because it's a status symbol and makes them feel good? Certainly, but I think you need to be a little more open-minded and give people some credit before you judge what they drive. Just because they like it doesn't mean you have to. The same could be said for other Land Rover drivers. It's kind of sad to me that there are so many older model drivers. Older models? That sounds like an old supermodel. That's not what I meant. So many drivers who have older models that are either modified or completely bone stock that feel like because you drive a newer one, you're not as into Land Rovers as they are. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm equally as interested in every single model of Land Rovers that exist. From Series 1 Land Rovers to Series 2 to Range Rover Classics, all the way up to the L405 and the Velar. I love every single model in between, because they're something I'm passionate about. And I feel like a lot of Land Rover owners don't get the credit they deserve just because they don't drive a 1999 Discovery. All in all, these cars are incredible, and when you share that experience, it's a much better experience. So I feel like people need to be a little more open-minded about why people actually drive these things.
Did yours ever work? No.
No. Now, this is a question I got more recently where someone asked about the cabin noise at 60 miles an hour. Now, this is something I had never thought to measure, which is surprising because I like to measure every little thing about the car and know exactly what it is. But I didn't know the cabin noise at 60 miles an hour. But now, thanks to a decibelometer app, I actually do. Well, the app knows. I don't remember. At 60 miles an hour, it peaks at 63 decibels, and the average was 61. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad, but after riding in a modern Toyota Highlander at 60 miles an hour for the past 30 minutes, I promise, it is much quieter. Absolutely. I'll stop talking now and just show a pretty montage of what the interior looks like. I actually have no idea. I've never had one on mine, but I've heard USAA has a good warranty program through the comments, so I'll put some of those comments up right now. And I've also heard that CarMax has a fantastic warranty program, but I can't really remember where I heard that from. I never had an aftermarket warranty on this one because there was one on the 7 Series and one on the 4 Series. Neither one of them did anything. Even when it came time to do repairs, they just wouldn't cover anything. And it was supposed to be an extensive, full body, full everything warranty, but when we sat down and actually looked at it, there were so many terms and conditions, it kind of just killed everything for me, and we decided no more aftermarket warranties because for the most part, they're not worth shit. Now, that's not to say there aren't a few out there that are actually worth something, but the ones we got, they were awful. This is in reference to a video I did a few months ago talking about an L322 buyer's guide. Now, the reason this question comes up is because in that video, I said, and I admit to this, that I wouldn't buy anything past 2008 when I'm looking at an L322. Obviously, if you're looking at something older, you don't really have a choice. But the reason I said that is not because they're worse. It's because they are just objectively older vehicles, and they have older parts and components, and a lot of times those components haven't been replaced yet because people end up getting rid of them as problems come up. So my point was that the components in a newer model are going to be able to be recognized when something goes wrong, and you'll be able to fix them because you'll know and you'll have the car when it goes wrong. Whereas if you inherit those problems, it's typically more of a pain in the ass to get them sorted out because you have no idea what's going on. And so that was really my reasoning behind recommending something 2008 or newer. Because when it comes down to it, 2008 is a lot newer than 2005, even if it's just 3 years. In Land Rover's history, those 3 years made a huge difference. So if you have something older, I'm not saying it's a bad car. I'm just saying for people who have no experience buying a Land Rover or buying a Range Rover and who just want to get started with the ownership, I would recommend something 2008 or newer, and then you can learn about how to deal with Land Rover problems from there. It was meant no offense to anyone who had an older model. In fact, I think the L322 in its original format is such a spectacular vehicle. I think it looks beautiful and it is insanely capable. So that's where that came from. I was recommending that video for people who have no ownership experience. So there it is, 10 questions quickly answered about Land Rover ownership, the Range Rover, and other parts of the Range Rover. These bugs are driving me insane today. So anyway guys, I will see you in the next video. If you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up, and also be sure if you have any Range Rover, any Land Rover model, and you want to organize a meetup, let me know. I'd be happy to bring the Range Rover out and we can record a video with them and collaborate on them. Anyway guys, thanks for watching.